This is BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hey, welcome to BACKtalk, the premier podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine, featuring in-depth conversation and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. Ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot, by the way. And I'm your host, Janice Robinson Celeste. What measures are you as a parent taking to ensure your child is safe from the dangers of human trafficking and abuse? What resources do you wish you had to better protect them? I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. This is like one of the capitals of human trafficking, especially for Black girls. And as you know, when Black girls go missing, they rarely look for them. They rarely look for us. So we're going to be talking about just this today. And we have with us a special guest today, and I'm so happy that she's here. Her name is Sophia Strother Lewis. I'm about to bring her to the stage. Hey, Sophia, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about you. I know you were sex trafficked at a very young age, right? And you are a survivor. And that's the part we want to celebrate today, especially the fact that you are a survivor. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am a survivor of child sexual assault, human trafficking, domestic violence, and more recently, sexual assault. At the age of 40, I am currently in an open sexual assault case and went to trial maybe about 10 months ago. But unfortunately, even after he was convicted by a jury, the visiting judge made a decision that allowed him to escape. And so now he is on the run. So I am what someone would call definitely a survivor with some built-in resiliency for sure.
Wow. I'm sorry that happened to you repeatedly and then even recently. Mm-hmm. And, I hope they catch him because we don't need people like that out on the street at all.
Yes.
So people don't realize how prevalent this issue is, and I'm very acute to it just because of the business that I'm in, protecting children all my life. And even here in Atlanta, we watched the whole human trafficking ring that we reported, and nobody did anything about it at a hotel during a pageant where I had my little 3-year-old granddaughter, and they were going around filming her. And they kept doing it until we stood up and said, "Hey, what you doing?" And then they knew we were on to them, but that didn't even stop them. We reported them to the front desk at a hotel. We called the police. These people followed us to this hotel from a restaurant that was miles away the night before. But because we had the pageant name on our T-shirt, it's easy to Google and see where we were. Right. So, that kind of thing. So they are very complex. And this was near the airport. So I was worried that, with them filming her, they want to scoop her up at 3. Yeah. At 3 years old, scoop her up and just take her to the airport, because I knew how it works on the black market. And I know it might not be your case, but I know they will film children. And if they get a high enough bid, they'll follow them home, abduct them, and you'll never see them again. Yeah. And they don't care how old they are anymore. Like, this doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But I want you to tell people about your life, because this is a topic that is so important to me. And I think all parents need to hear the good, the bad, it's no good, but the bad, the ugly of this whole situation.
Yeah. And, the unfortunate thing, we are talking to parents, but mine happened at the behest of my parents. So one of the things that we don't talk about enough is familial trafficking. I'm paraphrasing Harriet Tubman when she said, "I could have saved so many more slaves if they only knew they were slaves." Absolutely. And even in my case, I didn't even self-identify as being trafficked until I was in my mid-30s, primarily because I saw pimp as like a Bishop Don Juan on the block. They got the girls working the corner with the fishnet panties. They're all primarily adults. So I really didn't see myself as being trafficked by my mom. I just felt like at the time, okay, well, maybe she might have been a little bit trifling, but that wasn't the case. And what primed the ground for that was my father actually sexually assaulted me from the age of 9. And so I had a relationship with him between 9 and about 11, 12 years old, while he was on the height of his drug and alcohol addiction. And my mother worked all night, so she didn't see it. I didn't know how to articulate it to her. I'm 9. I'm an only child. We did not go to church. So it's not like, even that was an outlet. And even some ministries, you got to be careful because abuse is taking place inside of the church. We don't talk about that enough. That's a whole nother show. But faith can hurt as well. And so there wasn't really an outlet. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, they didn't have outward campaigns on where to go, what to do, what it looks like. So after my father passed, unfortunately, abruptly, in a car accident in 1993, my mother just didn't know how to cope. Her way of coping was through drug addiction on a whole nother level. And unfortunately, she saw her daughter as a means to secure drugs and to take care of the family. And so she began to groom me between the ages of 13 and 15. In between that time, I also had a son by one of my mom's drug dealers that wasn't 100% of my own accord. And so I became a teen mom at the age of 15. And that actually is what led me to leave my mom's home at that time, because it gave me something to live for. I was sick and tired of the lifestyle of being good enough, $40 on my knees, $100 on my back. My everyday mission at 13, 14, and 15 was how I'm going to make sure my brothers and I get fed on a daily basis or keep the roof over our heads. And so at 15, I left my mom's house, October 21st, 1995, and never went back. From there, though, there were times that I really wanted a relationship with my mom. I stressed that all the time. Like, even though my mother wasn't the best mom, and for anybody that has had those parents that we shake our heads because they weren't either meant to be parents, they weren't ready to be parents, or they didn't have the capacity to nurture children properly. That doesn't mean we didn't want that relationship. Really yearning for something positive in that regard of parental parents, parental authority, guardianship, love, whatever that looks like. So I went through periods of time, and also because I wanted to keep my younger siblings closer. I have 2 younger brothers through my mom close to me, of trying to get that relationship where I thought it should be. And it honestly wasn't until I was probably about 41 that I truly forgave my mom. I just really looked at her and said, here is somebody that's had to cope with life herself her entire life. She didn't find the ability to do that. Everybody that knew her loved her. And I used to wonder, how could do you know the same person that I know? And I spent most of my life trying not to be her. And unfortunately, she passed in a house fire. Go figure, 30 years to the almost to the month that my father passed from a fire. My mom passed from a fire with my stepfather. That I really realized how much I was kind of a little bit disappointed in God to a certain degree. And I say that coming from a person that is licensed in ministry, but I felt like I was finally getting to a point where I had forgiven my mother and could move forward in an existence where I don't look at her as my mom. She's Sophia, because I'm my mom's namesake. She's Sophia, and she can be cool people, but I don't have any expectations on a maternal aspect of things. I just know that this is like the most I'm going to get out of this, and I want that to be healthy at least. And she was taken away 4 months actually after I said I do, and it was the last time I saw her. And I'm so glad that I had forgiven her to the point that I could invite her to my wedding, because in hindsight, again, everybody is just not meant to parent. And that is just what it is. Just because you can have a child doesn't mean you can actually be a parent. And I think the sooner as we become adults, we realize that we can't put the same expectation on every human being that we want. Some of us that have gone so many years in a hurt place and making a lot of decisions that hurt us ultimately might be better for it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes it's in your own family, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's your own family. And we don't talk about that enough in the Black community. The uncles, the brothers, the parents, we don't talk about that. I've actually heard people say, it's the opposite, the Hicks and the Hills. And I'm like, no, it's not always the Hicks and the Hills. We just don't talk about it. And it needs to be discussed. Parents who are looking after the kid to make sure they're not being trafficked. They also need to make sure they're not leaving their kids with just anybody. Give your kids, if they're old enough, the words to use. We talk about good touch, bad touch, but you really you need to let them know we are proponents of telling the kids in our family to use the actual words. My vagina, you're not allowed to touch my vagina or my penis, because that tends to scare people when you hear that out in public. Like, don't touch my vagina. It's different from don't touch my cookies. Don't touch, this. Don't touch my vagina. Okay?
Yeah, and
That's important.
We need to teach that from jump. It needs to be a part of the same vernacular from when we're saying hi, bye, mom, dad. Like,
Right.
There's no young age to start introducing them to what their body is, and this shaming that if we say the word penis, it's like, oh my gosh, or vaginal area or vagina is just so terrible. But yet, like you said, and I know an instance where a girl, her uncle, she was trying to tell her mom that her uncle was trying to take her cookies, and mom just kept thinking that she was talking about literal cookies, when the whole time, and she might have been 5 or 6, the uncle was trying to have sex with her, and actually was. And so it's so vitally important that we don't put nicknames to our vaginal parts, that we are very transparent. And even with my own children, after a certain age, I don't need to be bathing you. I don't need to be touching you. There's no reason why I need to have access to your body, even as your mother. And at the time, even with my daughter as her father, like, no, dad doesn't need to be bathing you at this age. You should be able to get that soap and that water and do it yourself. And if you feel uncomfortable, slap daddy's hand and tell mom. Like, it needs to be where even defending yourself is a part of the equation of what we teach. It's not okay to touch me or invade my personal space.
Right. And I've heard stories over the years. I even had a student one time confide in me how her aunt in a wheelchair was being trafficked. And she when she got to be about 6, she hid the student in a crawl space in a closet because the mom was trying to traffic her. So you guys, we never know what people are going through. Like, I would have never fathomed that. Like, never could have I've thought about that. And being a teacher, it made me more aware of what kids are going through, from kids that fall asleep in the classroom to behavior problems like she was having. So, I just want people to just be more aware. And if you see something, say something. That's the other thing. You see something that you're not sure about, keep your eyes open, watch, and say something. But you talked about when you had your son by the drug dealer. That was your turning point, which is amazing. First of all, right there, because I don't know the situation with the drug dealer, but the fact that he was a drug dealer and your son, you saw him as this light and this hope is fantastic and amazing, because he had nothing to do with it, right? So,
and it didn't start out like that, because I tried to abort. I mean, I tell the stories because I was 14 at the time. And this is not someone that I wasn't attracted to. He was like 4 or 5 years older than me. So obviously he was already too old to be with me at 14. But he was supplying drugs to my mom at the time. And it was just a situation. And I write about it in my book. And I tell these young girls all the time, we think we've grown, but you can't handle no grown man, sweetheart. And when no doesn't become no, because we had the Destiny Child of the world with the songs that no, no, no means yes, 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 which is one of the worst songs I think has ever come out. One of them, because no, when I say no, that don't mean yes. It means no matter how far into foreplay, no matter how far into making out we get, even if we're in the middle of having sex, if I say no, I'm good, that means stop. Like, at any time, that's what that means. And that wasn't the case with him. And for years, I lied to my son about who his biological father was. 1, because I was embarrassed, and 2, because I didn't want him to be that guy for my son, because I knew he did not have the best track record as far as just period. He just wasn't a ideal role model, and still isn't to this day. But it is what it is. That's who his biological sperm donor is. That's what I call him, and that's just what that is. But even when I got pregnant with my oldest son, I was trying everything to abort him. I'm getting in fights on purpose, belly flopping, running into doorknobs, smoking weed, because everybody told me that's how you could have a miscarriage. But there was no way I wanted to bring him into this world. Having a mother that was having me do the things that I was doing. We're living very poor at this time in a small rural town. And then now we're going to add to it having a child by someone that I don't want to deal with. So like it was a lot. And when we missed the mark of being able to have an abortion, I knew then, okay, well, maybe there's purpose in this. And the purpose was when he was born, it made me feel like I had somebody else to live for, outside of subjecting myself to the lifestyle my mom had me in at the time when she was not in a good, healthy space because she was on drugs really bad at that time. And so he just gave me a reason to want to leave, and it allowed me to further my education, do all these other things. It still didn't allow me to love myself because I had to deal with the fallout of now being bred from 9, that all I was good for was doing what I saw in pornography videos on my father, and then transitioning to going out there and having to flip tricks to take care of my family. Now here I am, 15 with a newborn, trying to figure out what self-esteem. Oh, I don't need to have somebody going upside their head, and that means they love me. Or, I still don't need to subject myself to doing sexual favors within a relationship when I really don't want to. And so I still went through several years of domestic violent relationships at that point, because I still didn't know what my value and worth was outside of those scenarios. So I always tell people healing literally is a lifelong process. It's not any such thing as you get out, you ought to be good and move on. There's a lot of things that, especially if you were abused as a child or as an adolescent in your formative years, that stays with you if it's unchecked without any type of therapy or just come to Jesus moment or whatever that looks like for you. But a lot of times, almost all of your decisions are made on the premise of what you were introduced to at that age. And so I always try to give women grace, especially like, you made a lot of decisions in a hurt place. And we don't realize how detrimental that is until we come out of another empty relationship, until we come out of another, even within your own family, where you're allowing them to take advantage of you and manipulate you because they're family. And I had to learn a long time ago, I could care less if we share the same blood. As a grown person, I'm able to make my own decision who's going to be in my orbit. And if that doesn't include you because you're toxic or because you're manipulative, then so be it. God, give me the strength to deal with the hurt, but I got to move on. And that's the space that I'm in even now, because my most recent rape case, I had people fall out with me because I got raped, because you didn't self-disclose, or because you're holding me hostage for your situation because I chose to talk out about it. I chose to get justice. Now it's my fault. So I've had to learn, even in a hurt space. I've been telling people, if you can't give me grace, give me space. Like I don't have to be tiptoeing around your feelings for my issue.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how people blame the victim. It kills me. It really does kill me. But I want you to get real with the audience. Like, a lot of people can imagine, what people know what sex looks like. But what, as a young child, did you actually go through? Like, what are some of the memories that I don't want to like be traumatized, but what kind of memories that you have that just was the worst or the most horrible thing that a child can go through? Because I wanted the parents to understand what's out there. People think they're just on their back or on their knees, but there's more stuff to this, right? It's more things that people can't even think about, like, or imagine.
It is, some of my darkest times, I'm gonna leave in my darkest times, but what I can relate to is the fact of feeling completely worthless and not understanding that I have the right to say anything. So one of the things I do talk about, we talk about how pornography can be a gateway, and I have some individuals that are very adamant, women and men choose to be in the sex industry, and that's all well and good. You can do whatever you want to do with your body. I get it. But I know for me, in my experience, that's what my father used as a gateway to start manipulating me. And it was to introduce me to pornography when my mother wasn't home, have me watch it, have me perform the acts that I saw in the film on him, and tell me that's what love is. Tell me that that's what shapes relationships. If men tell me to do it, I'm supposed to do it. It's what women do. It's about pleasing men, and we can't tell my mom because it's a secret. And So I know pornography, what that did for me though, is desensitized me to all things sex. Because it was just a part of my everyday conversation and task with my dad. Nothing about sex is sacred. Nothing, even in a spiritual space, nothing could completely take away the fact that I could have sex initially and not feel guilty. I can decompartmentalize if I needed to, but I was very good at compartmentalizing. I can have sex, not have feelings, have sex, keep going. And I was a habitual liar because I didn't want anyone to know that this is what I was having to do to survive as a teenager. Because in my mind, I was just a slut. I was just a hoe. I was just being fast. And then every adult around me reemphasize that because they would be like, oh, well, you're just being fast. You just want attention. Everything was about me acting out. I'm the problem. And that's not necessarily the case. I've tried to run away several times. It didn't work out for me too, because I was partially a goody two shoes. So I'd run away to a church or I'd run away to a school. Like, because we're in a rural town or a small community, there's not like you had a whole lot of options to go to. But again, it just caused me to carry myself in ways that in hindsight, I'm not embarrassed now because I know what I had to do to survive. But when people say the word trafficking, I actually hate it because it doesn't do it justice. We are being raped over and over and over again as a lifestyle. And I even talk about, even in this work that we do, it's very siloed. You have domestic violence has their track. Sexual assault survivors have their track. Human trafficking survivors have their track, when in all actuality, we're all being abused and neglected. And if we actually came together on a larger platform, they might treat it like an epidemic like they did COVID. Because just as millions of people died in a very short period of time, over 11 million to 12 million people are affected by domestic violence and sexual assault every single year. So if we treated this, we got thousands of women and men that die from this every single year, not just a once in every 100-year plague. We're talking about every year women and men are dying at the hands of someone else that doesn't have self-control. So the darkest depths of this is your babies being raped every single day. This is your children or your family members being beat almost to death so that they can remain in remission. A lot of pimps and recruiters will actually get them hooked on drugs. The average age that they enter into a life of trafficking is 12 to 14 years old. Within 48 hours, typically, of anybody running away, they might have the introduction of trafficking in their life. This is based on an FBI report. Over 50% of juveniles that are a part of trafficking are Black boys and girls. Over almost 50%, I think it's 40-something percent, this is according to the FBI, of adults that are a part of being trafficked are Black women. Again, you don't see us, you don't hear our stories, but we're always, if it's something negative in our society, we're at the top of the helm. And if it's something positive, we're at the bottom of the list. And that is no different when it comes to domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking. But again, when it comes to trafficking, it is something that I live with today. And even when I was raped and tortured 2 years ago, it was a floodgate for me because it opened up a lot of what I thought I had dealt with what I went through as an adolescent. But I just kept saying, how can I have 34 years of habitual sexual violence and physical abuse? And at some point, somebody's going to break. And that was me. And I went through a complete breakdown of who I was, what I stood for. And this was also my first time going through the entire process of seeking justice. In times past, I've had rape kits done. I was actually in Elle magazine in 2009 about rape kits being done and never processed. So that's not a new thing. They've been habitually not processing rape cases, which is also vitally important, even in trafficking. But even how they don't protect the victim. And this is why we don't have enough survivors of trafficking or sexual assault or domestic violence coming forward, because we're not protected in this space. Like, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. And it almost made me regret telling other people to come forward because there was no protection whatsoever. And even now, with me being in a partial, almost type of protection program, they exposed my address, my date of birth, my social security, my vehicle, my plate number, all while I was going through trial. I mean, it was, the craziest thing in the world. I talk about this. I was on the stand for 4.5 hours during my trial last November. And they had nothing, like my evidence and everything was so ironclad, but they were so desperate that they used the show Bridgerton by Shonda Rhimes as a reason for why I was raped. And I said to myself, I need to get a hold of Shonda. I need for Shonda to know. I said I was even going to throw a Bridgerton party. They tried to say that because that show was playing, it had just came out actually, that the first 2 minutes, there's a sex scene where they're on a tree or whatever. You see a little booty cheek. And because of that show being playing in the background, that was the reason that provoked him into going into a sexual frenzy and thinking that I wanted something that I said no to. And wasn't even the play. It wasn't anything intimate. I had just met this person. And so this is how ludicrous and desperate these people are when they're taking advantage of us, that they could literally use a show like Bridgerton to say, well, that's the reason why I kidnapped and raped her, is because of this show.
Yeah, that is insanity that they would even try that. But I'm not surprised at anything anymore. Now, I saw a statistic way back that 1 out of 3 women or children, girls, I should say, not even women yet, girls are either sexually abused or raped. And that bothered me because I had 3 girls, so I was always very cautious about that. So if you have 3 little girls, the statistic is that at least one will be raped. And it may be higher now because, like you said, a lot of people don't report it. I don't know about the boys because those are rarely reported.
Yeah.
So,
they're just as vulnerable. And actually Black boys and Black transgender youth are one of the most vulnerable population because they are often Black children in general are not seen, period. And then we as females are over sexualized. So it's like, oh, well, she asked for it. Well, she looked older than what she was. So I didn't know she was underage, all of that other hogwash. But then you add in a man, which again, we deal with this toxic masculinity. Then we add in a young man that might be gay or transgender, which they already have to deal with all types of discrimination within their own culture. But then now outside of that, nobody is speaking up for them. Nobody is talking about, I don't care what spiritual background you have, whether you believe in it or not, people are people, period. First and foremost. And I doubt that, especially if you say you're a Christian, if Christ was here, he would say, you know what? You can't be healed. You can't get grace. You can't be loved on because of X, Y, and Z, because he loved on a whole bunch of people that were rooting for him to die. And that includes Judas, who he kissed, knowing what he was going to do. So again, I just say young men in general are the most overlooked population because the majority, over 90%, obviously, are females. But that means still that's close to 10% that are men. So if we have 10 million people that are affected by this annually, that means at least 1 million are boys or men. And we don't talk enough about the abuse that men, whether they're adults or children, also have to succumb to as well.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to give up?
Yes, and even recently I felt like that. I tell people, and I'm very transparent, and I give context to say that I had a very, very successful business, L2E Industries. I had a contract with Amazon where I was delivering packages. So the blue vans that are in your neighborhoods, I would run almost 40 of those, 100 on my staff, went from 500,000 annual revenue to several million in less than 3 years. I mean, making a great impact. And I closed that business this July because I mentally could not handle the fallout from the past abuse that has been triggered by this current case and the fact that my rapist is on the run and not feeling safe to manage my company, the depression that came. I thought by going through the the justice journey, I would feel some type of vindication. I would feel a healing. I would be able to get closure. And it was the opposite. I actually felt worse after because of everything that led up to it. And then when we went back for sentencing in December and he was not present because he had escaped, started me down another darker path of, okay, so who am I? What am I supposed to do? Through this whole process, I was nobody, nothing along all systems. And so now I'm supposed to be something like what is it? And I've lost people that I loved in this process, even not feeling 100% support, even within the faith community, because you don't always feel like you have a safe space to talk about some of those intimate feelings, or the fact that I am depressed, the fact that I was dealing with anxiety, the fact that I am grieving even after losing my mother and stepfather last year and eulogizing them. My son's father dropped dead 3 months later on Mother's Day. And then my spiritual mother, who took me in when my mother was at her height, she passes. And then on top of that, from my assault, I have a disability now. Like, I deal with chronic back injury that I've had to have now 12 procedures in a year and a half. So all of this is transpiring while I'm supposed to be with the mask on, happy, healthy survivor with a successful career in a business. Psych. May 31st, I sat in my truck, and I'm a homeowner. I got my act together, had a company, but I sat in my truck on May 31st from 11 o'clock to about 2:30, praying to God, how do I need to die? Like, we're good. Like, I don't want to live to fight another day for what? When every single day is a new fight. Like, I can't remember a year in my life that I can say was a good year. I can't remember 6 months of my life that I can say I went 6 months without like major trauma. I've been saying to God, I just need one good month. Like, can I get 30 days where it's not something catastrophic or traumatic that is happening, that allows me time of respite? And so trust me, even in this space of us seemingly healthy and successful, there's still those inner demons that you have to really battle through so you can learn how to exhale. And that's been some of the things that I'm actually doing a symposium this weekend called Learning to Exhale Creative Symposium. It's about, God really gave me an opportunity of like, how do I catch my breath? What do I do when I'm waiting to exhale? And then how do I really walk into the I am season, even if I don't see it? How do I provoke manifestation in my life when I don't feel like it? And for me, it's just been breathe, do a task, breathe, get dressed, breathe, let's eat. Like, I don't take it days out. We're not looking weeks out. We're talking about moment to moment, getting through a 24-hour period in a safe space to where as I go into the next day, I can say I accomplished yesterday. And that is my marker. Not, I want to be some grandiose millionaire, or I'm gonna believe every snippet I see on social media. Well, you can be rich if you just open an LLC and in 2 days you'll be a millionaire, which is ridiculous. I've had millionaire status and I did some hard work. I almost feel insulted for you to feel you can put out a video and somebody else can rain on my parade in 2 days with an AI app. So like, for me, it's not about trying to compare myself to all of these wondrous, great folks in 2-minute clips, but how do I breathe, live, and repeat? Breathe, live, and repeat. And that's what I tell people that feel they're in crisis mode. They can't take it anymore. They don't know what to do. Or you have been exposed that your children have been abused or exposed to abuse. Managing, not guilting on yourself. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for the shame game of yourself, because you got to kick into action. It's how do you breathe, live, repeat? Breathe, live, repeat. And find sources that can allow you to get through each day. And that's the accomplishment.
Now, how has therapy, or has it played a role in your life? Did it help, or if you did it, or talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I really took counseling seriously around 36. Prior to that, I had went to a couple of advocacy centers. I went to one main advocacy center. I had maybe tried counseling a couple of times. I didn't have people that looked like me. I talk about representation being important. You don't have to. Trust me, I know some great therapists and psychiatrists that don't look like me, that make strides every day. But for me, I needed a me. I needed someone that I could relate to culturally, that could talk to me the way people that look like me can. And I got that with Cheryl Alexander. She's out of Round Rock, Clancy Counseling. And every time I speak, I talk about her because to me, she was a part of helping to save my life, because she allowed me to stop. And I'll never forget my first session with her. I'm going in. I'm like, my son is this. My mother don't understand. And my ex, because I had just broken up with someone I was in a 2-year relationship with, that I don't know what I was thinking. It is what it is. And so I'm coming out of that, and I had just looked at some pills, and I'm all over the place. And within 5 minutes, Cheryl stopped me, and she was like, "You done?" I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And she talking to, like, I'm looking around. I know I'm the only one in the room, but maybe she didn't saw a ghost. So I'm just trying to make sure we good. And then she said, she leaned in ever so slightly, and with almost a very maternal voice, "When is enough gonna be enough?" And I don't know why in that moment, it clicked for me. And she said, "Almost everything that is happening to you now, you're allowing." And that level of accountability, I wasn't ready to accept, but it was the reality. Because a lot of things, in men too, I saw the red flags, but I wanted it to be a flashing red light where that still meant you can go. Or I wanted it to be a yellow light where I'm going to proceed with caution. I see some stuff, but I'm going to proceed with caution, when in all actuality, I was trying to fix everybody because I needed to be fixed. And I really had to sit in that for a moment to be like, a lot of what I'm doing is I can stop it. Like, I have the control to walk away from family that are toxic, friends that have been toxic. I don't need to be in this friendship just because I said I've been knowing you for 20 years. If it's not advantageous to growth and moving forward, why am I in it? Same thing with relationships. I don't need to see the writing on the wall and walk past the writing on the wall. I don't need to have a build-a-bear spirit where I can build a man up, get them ready for sale for the next woman. Like, I don't have to have that. Let me shut that store down. They got that franchise on lock. I don't need to add to it. So when she really allowed me to find out who I was through the Enneagram, she had me do the Enneagram for my personality and learn me. Then I could deal with everything else. Everything else was symptomatic at that point. It wasn't do or die, which I thought it was when I was in crisis mode. So dealing with her. And then I also did equine psychotherapy through Wild Hope, which is an organization that purposely helps individuals that have been sexually assaulted or trafficked. And I would go out to the ranch. And so all of their sessions are at a ranch with horses. And I was just in open. I didn't have to be in a closed box. I felt like I was going somewhere and wasn't going anywhere. But because I was in nature, it was just different and very freeing. And I didn't realize how much horses really understand. They're very emotional beings. Didn't realize it. Very closed off to that. And then I also, Simple Sparrow Farms, which is fantastic. They're like a farm that allows the animals there to be therapeutic. And so you can do gardening, farming, even pet sitting, which can be a very grounding experience when you're going through. So I now really try to advocate for people to look for non-traditional therapy, because everything doesn't have to be in four walls, especially if you've been trafficked and you were meant to be shackled, because some of them are. They have to stay in the rooms. They can't travel about. So you don't like being in a locked space where you don't have control. There are other ways that you can get therapy, but it saved my life. It really, really saved my life. So I advocated for anybody that wants a sounding board that nobody has any stake in the game. You don't have to worry about hearing about it back in church. You don't have to worry about your cousin told this person, friends that don't know how to be quiet. They got to bring 3 more other friends in. This is a safe space for you to be able to deal with that. And parents that have had their children exposed to it, they have to get therapy, because you need to be able to get almost like a trauma-informed care and exposure, so you know how to talk to individuals that's been exposed and you don't aid to their misery and or hurt.
Absolutely. Now, your grandmother played a role in your journey too. Can you speak about her a bit?
Yeah, my Nana. That was my Matta Jones. That was our nickname for her. Her actual name was Vivian Strother Adams, and she was it. You know, it's funny. I was watching somebody online talking about how good God is, to where He's still answering prayers for people that have been dead and gone on. And I remember talking to my husband even on last night. I said to him, before my grandmother passed, I took her in and took care of her the last couple years of her life because I made a promise she'd never go in a nursing home. And I remember hearing her. I would eavesdrop on her praying every night to where I feel ashamed that I don't go in like she does. But she would say, bless my granddaughter and bless my grandchildren. And she passed in 2014. And I just said, my prayer for people is that they have that level of relationship they get to experience in their life. She was one of the most positive people in my life that allowed me to see that I have value and worth. And even though it took a while for it to catch up, I think her passing when I was 34 is what eventually led to me really wanting to get real help, because I realized that my cycle had not been broken yet. But she was the one that put the business acumen in to me. She was the one that really gave me a work ethic that has led to my success, even on the professional realm. She put the level of empathy in me to where I did eventually look at my mother and see her as a person. And I'll never forget, God dropped in my spirit, I didn't save you just for everybody else. I didn't save you for ministering to everybody but your mom. Like, your mother needs prayer too. Your mother needs to see that lifestyle, and she needs to experience forgiveness, like true forgiveness. And so I can't, and as you can see how emotional I got, I could talk about my years of abuse and all of this and not break down, but I talk about that Maddie Jones. She was everything. She was everything.
Well, everyone needs a Maddie Jones, that's for sure, in their life.
Yes,
now,
they do.
We're getting toward the end of the show, but I want you to talk to parents that are listening or family members that are listening and let them know what they should be looking out for to protect their children, if they're the protectors of their children. Because in your case, that wasn't the case.
To caregivers in general, because we have a lot of non-traditional families.
Absolutely.
Where they're not with their biological parents, or you don't have to biologically even have any children to be instrumental in their lives. But I talk about, and you saw how emotional that relationship with my grandmother was, having that positive relationship, which means that young people feel comfortable and confident in coming to you in a non-judgmental space. The first thing I tell parents is you got to know your child's love language. There is a program, it's the number 5 and then lovelanguages.com. It's a wonderful way for you to take, it's a few minute quiz about understanding the best way to communicate with your children. You have to understand this is a different generation than your own. Their resiliency is completely different. They're being exposed through social media to things that obviously wasn't even an issue for us at all. So being very in the loop with what's going on with their social media, if they're under a certain age, having the parental controls in place, they can be exposed to soft porn on YouTube, which is a completely open device. They can Google and get a lot of things that typically when we were that age, we weren't exposed to at all. So actually not being that parent that never, ever checks the phone. To be that parent that doesn't download spyware on the phone of their children. You need to be seeing what sites, individuals that they're communicating with. They can be catfished on social media. That's where a lot of things are happening, where we have these grown men or recruiters that are coming in and setting up profiles as adolescents and teenagers. And because you're not checking to see the friend circle, because you're not asking no questions, because you don't know how to communicate with your children, you're missing that mark. Or if they tell you something, you don't want to believe it, especially if it's a family member. Again, if you think something, say something. It's better for you to be wrong than to be right and you never looked it up, and you never checked into it, and you never tried to get authorities involved. Understand that there is a 988 number that's universal in the US, that if somebody is showing signs of mental depression, anxiety, if their tolerance, if you notice a huge behavioral shift to where they used to be a very outgoing and charismatic young person and now they're closed off, or they're very have low tolerance with you, so now they're being belligerent or short-tempered with you, that can be a sign. If you notice a pulling away, they typically wanted to go to the movies or wanted to go out. Oh no, I'll just stay home, or no, that's okay, I'm just gonna go online. Those are clear signs of behavioral isolation. A lot of times that's what traffickers want to do. They'll come in as what we call Romeo pimps. So they make the children feel as though that they're being loved and they're giving them something that they're not getting at home. And so now they want to make it to where their caregivers or parents are the enemy. So when you start seeing the teenagers act as if you're the enemy, it's time to start checking who are they hanging around and where are their whereabouts. And having discipline in place is important. I know we're in a generation where we don't want to discipline, and I'm not talking about physical discipline. We're talking about having a curfew and actually sticking to it. Having them call in and check in and be accountable to that, actually putting them on a punishment, whether it's taking a phone away, internet access away, allowing it to where they can't go out. They can't be allowed to talk to you crazy, come in when they get ready, leave when they get ready. We're like, who are you? You're just paying rent. Like, you're not an authority figure, because again, if something happens, they won't feel led to come to you because they feel they already grown. So just understanding there's certain things that are for their benefit. They may not see it in that moment, but it's definitely a protective factor. They don't need to be sitting on laps of their grandfather, their father, bouncing on knees. That was something I talk about in my book that my step-grandfather used to do, was to have me on his lap and then hold me from behind, but he would hold my breasts. And nobody's the wiser because it's always granddad playing around. Well, no, we're not going to have that. There's no reason why I need to be bouncing on your knee at 9. I'm trying to make it make sense. So, it's the small things where you're just more diligent in those relationships and actually believe them if they come to you, or at least do your due diligence to investigate if they say anything to you.
Absolutely. Now, you spoke about your book a little bit. I want you to tell us about your book and what your aspirations are now for the future.
Sure. So I have 2 books. My first book is titled Sophia, I'm Back. I wrote that right after my divorce. My daughter's father, I married. He was 20 years my senior and looked just like my father. That's a topic for another show. But right after I came out of that relationship, I wrote a book called Sophia, I'm Back. And it was just my first time really coming out about some of the child sexual assault that I had at the hands of my father. And just, it talked about some different signs as well that you can look for to be proactive parents. I called it the 3 Ps of parenting, proactive, prevention, parenting. But anyway, that's one. And then the other one is Taking My Life Back. It's actually a 9-week workbook. And it's a great way to kind of journal through anything that you've gone through, whether it's grief, whether it's trauma, abuse, whatever that looks like. It really kind of just allows you to have a clear path on how to journal, to really look like, why do you do what you do? Like, what has your surroundings and your environment done to shape who you are? And are those things you need to check? Because maybe it's time for you to go through your own personal awakening, which we all go through. We're taught and bred things from childhood. And then as we go through our early life, you would hope you kind of get your own picture of what reality and life should look like and go through a paradigm shift. But if you haven't, this allows you to start that. And they're both available on my website, sophiastrother.com, or wherever books are sold. Actually, they're available as well. And for my future, I want to continue to create content. Me and my daughter actually co-wrote a movie, Love You to the Moon, in 2022, and then hosting the symposium in Waco at Baylor University. Shout out to Baylor and Creative Waco for allowing this wonderful opportunity, and Q and Coda Films for partnering with me on this. But this is a way that I'm exposing entrepreneurs, those that want to strive in the entertainment industry, and survivors as to really having the game, as I talk about, so that you can really make a life of finding your voice, embracing your now, and exhaling for your future. And you can do that through a platform of performing arts. And so I would really love to take this healing space of my life and continue to pour it into my passion, and that is in the industry.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Sophia, I want to thank you for joining us today on BACKtalk. I mean, your story is absolutely amazing, and it needs to be told. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you
Really
so much.
appreciate you. All right, guys. And a big shout out to all of you guys who tuned in. We had a lot of engagement on Instagram. I saw a lot of people out there. So shout out to you guys. So join us again next week, same time, same place for Successful Black Parenting Magazine's BACKtalk. We're a syndicated podcast, and it's a must for Black parents everywhere. So share it, listen to it, click on it. All those things help us to thrive. Make sure you follow us on social media. The more you engage, the more we all can thrive. And we'll be back again next week with a different story. And it's always a good story. So I wish you the best and much success. Take care. And again, thank you for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.